The stars looked different from the observation deck of the human ship Harmony's Edge. Ambassador Lisa Martinez stood quietly, watching the bright lights of the Zephyrian capital world grow larger as they approached. She had traveled far from Earth to reach this place. 3 months in space, jumping from one star system to another, all to sit at a table and talk. Lisa was 42 years old with dark brown hair and calm green eyes. She wore the blue uniform of a human diplomat, with small silver pins that showed. Her rank, to anyone looking at her, she seemed like a normal government worker. Someone who spent her days in meetings and writing reports. They would be very wrong. The Zephyrian Empire controlled 12 star systems. They had been traveling between the stars for over 1,000 years. Humans had only learned to travel faster than light 30 years ago. To the Zephyrians, humans were still children playing with toys they barely understood. Captain Brooks walked up beside her. He was a tall man with short black hair and the quiet manner of a professional soldier. Ambassador, we will reach the planet in 2 hours. Should I prepare the shuttle? Lisa nodded. Yes, Captain. Make sure Sergeant Collins checks all the equipment twice. We cannot afford any problems. Brooks smiled a little. Ma'am, you worry too much. This is just a trade meeting. What could go wrong? If only he knew, Lisa thought. She had read every report about the Zephyrian Empire. She knew about their wars, their conquests, and their treatment of weaker species. King Valros the Magnificent ruled with absolute power. He had destroyed entire civilizations that refused to bow to him. The human government wanted a trade agreement. They needed Zephyrian technology to improve their own ships and medicine. In return, humans offered rare metals from their mining worlds and advanced computer systems. It seemed like a fair deal. Lisa hoped it would stay that way. 2 hours later, their shuttle descended through the atmosphere of Zephyria Prime. The capital city stretched out below them like a jewel made of crystal and metal. Towers reached toward the sky, connected by bridges that glowed with soft light. Flying vehicles moved between the buildings like schools of fish in an ocean of air. The shuttle landed on a platform near the royal palace. Lisa stepped out first, followed by Captain Brooks and Sergeant Collins. Collins was younger than Brooks, with red hair and freckles. He carried himself like someone ready for trouble. Even though this was supposed to be a peaceful mission, a group of Zephyrian officials waited for them. Zephyrians looked similar to humans, but were taller and thinner. Their skin had a slight blue tint, and their eyes were larger than human eyes. They wore flowing robes in bright colors. The leader of the group stepped forward. Welcome to Zephyria Prime, Ambassador Martinez. I am Chancellor Vex, advisor to His Majesty King Valros. The king is eager to meet with you. Lisa smiled politely. Thank you, Chancellor. We are honored to be here. They were escorted through the palace in vehicles that floated above the ground. Lisa watched everything carefully. She noted the positions of guards, the locations of exits, and the types of weapons the soldiers carried. Old habits were hard to break. The throne room was enormous. The ceiling rose high above them, decorated with paintings that showed Zephyrian victories in ancient wars. Hundreds of courtiers filled the space, all watching as the human delegation approached the throne. King Valros sat on a throne made from a single piece of black crystal. He was an impressive figure, even by Zephyrian standards. Nearly 8 feet tall, with silver hair and eyes that seemed to glow with inner light. He wore robes of deep purple decorated with gold thread. Approach, humans, the king commanded. His voice echoed through the vast room. Lisa walked forward with measured steps. She had met powerful people before, though none quite like this. She stopped at the proper distance and bowed her head slightly. Not too much, not too little. Diplomacy was all about balance. Your Majesty, I am Ambassador Lisa Martinez, representative of the Human Confederation. We come in peace, seeking friendship and mutual benefit between our peoples. King Valros studied her for a long moment. You are smaller than I expected. Humans are said to be a warrior race, yet you seem quite fragile. Lisa kept her expression neutral. Appearances can be deceiving, Your Majesty. Humans have many qualities that might surprise you. The king laughed, a sound like distant thunder. Indeed they might. Come, we shall begin our discussions. I am curious to learn what humanity has to offer the Zephyrian Empire. They were shown to a smaller chamber where the actual negotiations would take place. Lisa sat across from the king, at a table made from polished wood. Chancellor Vex took notes while other advisors whispered among themselves. Let us begin with simple matters, Lisa said. Humanity offers rare earth elements from our mining colonies, elements that are difficult to find in this region of space. We also have advanced computer technology that could benefit your people. The king leaned back in his chair. And what do you want in return? Access to your hyperdrive technology. Our current faster-than-light drives are slow and inefficient compared to yours. We also seek knowledge of your medical advances. Human doctors could save many lives with Zephyrian healing techniques. The discussions continued for several hours. Lisa presented data, answered questions, and negotiated terms. She was good at this work. Before becoming a diplomat, she had learned to read people, to understand what they really wanted beneath their words. As the day went on, she noticed General Korthik watching her. He was the king's military advisor, a scarred veteran with cold eyes. Every time Lisa spoke, his expression grew darker. She filed this information away for later consideration. During a break in the negotiations, Lisa excused herself to use the restroom. She walked down a corridor lined with artwork, her diplomatic shoes clicking softly on the marble floor. But her trained ears picked up something else. Voices speaking quietly behind a partially open door. She slowed her pace and listened. The voices were speaking in the common galactic language, which she understood perfectly. The humans grow stronger every year, one voice said. She recognized it as General Korthik. Their population expands, their technology improves. In 50 years they could challenge us. You worry too much, General, another voice replied. They are still weak. What can they do with their few dozen worlds against our empire? Enough to cause problems. I say we should eliminate this threat while we can, starting with their diplomat. Lisa kept walking, her expression unchanged, but inside her mind was racing. She had suspected this might happen. The Zephyrian Empire had not grown large. By being kind to their neighbors. She returned to the negotiation room and continued the discussions as if nothing had happened. But now she was watching everything more carefully. The positions of the guards, the layout of the room, the best escape routes if things went wrong. That evening, she was escorted to guest quarters in the royal palace. The rooms were beautiful, with soft beds and walls decorated with precious stones. But Lisa was not interested in luxury. She was interested in survival. After her escorts left, she began her security check. She found 3 listening devices hidden in the walls and furniture. Not surprising. She left them alone, but activated a small device that would make their recordings useless. She also checked the windows, the doors, and the ventilation system. Everything a diplomat should not know how to do. Everything she had learned in her previous career. Before she became Ambassador Martinez, Lisa sat on the edge of the bed and opened her diplomatic case. Inside were the usual items: documents, data tablets, and ceremonial gifts. But hidden in secret compartments were other things. Tools that most diplomats would never need. She sent an encrypted message to the Harmony's edge using her official communication equipment. To anyone monitoring, it would look like a routine progress report. But hidden in the diplomatic language was a different message entirely. Initial contact successful. Proceeding with caution. Recommend condition yellow status. Captain Brooks would understand. He would make sure the ship was ready to leave quickly if needed. He would also alert Earth Command that the mission might be more dangerous than expected. Lisa lay down on the soft bed but did not sleep deeply. She never slept deeply anymore. Too many years of living with danger had trained her body to stay alert, even while resting. Tomorrow would bring more negotiations. She hoped they would be successful. She hoped King Valros was an honorable leader who would keep his word. But if he was not, if General Korthik convinced him to choose violence over diplomacy, then the Zephyrian Empire would learn something important about humanity. They would learn that sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones who look the most harmless. They would learn that humanity had not survived among the stars by being weak or naive. And they would learn why some humans were given names that made their enemies afraid to sleep at night. But Lisa hoped it would not come to that. She really did want peace between their peoples. It would be better for everyone if tomorrow's negotiations ended with handshakes instead of bloodshed. The stars outside her window continued their eternal dance, unaware that the fate of two civilizations might depend on what happened in the next few days. Deep beneath the royal palace, in a chamber carved from solid rock, King Valros met with his most trusted advisors. The room was lit by glowing crystals that cast strange shadows on the walls. Ancient weapons from forgotten wars hung on display, reminders of the Zephyrian Empire's bloody history. General Korthik stood at attention, beside a holographic map showing human space. Red dots marked human colonies while blue showed Zephyrian territory. The difference in size was obvious. Humanity controlled maybe 30 star systems. The Zephyrian Empire held over 200. Your Majesty, Korthik began, his voice tight. With controlled anger, we cannot ignore this threat any longer. The humans multiply like insects. Their technology advances faster than our intelligence reports predicted. Admiral Hayes, commander of the Royal Fleet, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. He was an older Zephyrian with gray hair and tired eyes. Too many years of war had worn him down. General, with respect, the humans have shown no hostile intentions. Their diplomat seems reasonable. Korthik turned on him with barely contained fury. Reasonable? Hayes, you fool, do you not see what is happening? 30 years ago, humans could barely reach their own moon. Now they travel between stars. In another 30 years they could have weapons that rival our own. King Valros listened in silence. He was 300 years old, ancient by human standards, but middle-aged for a Zephyrian. He had ruled the empire for over a century, expanding its borders through conquest and diplomacy, but mostly conquest. Show me the projections again, the king commanded. Korthik activated a data display. Numbers and charts filled the air above the table. Human population growth, 15% per year. New colonies established, 3 to 4 annually. Military spending increased by 30% in the last 5 years alone. Chancellor Vex, the king's chief advisor, studied the data. These numbers are concerning, but they show a defensive buildup, not offensive preparation. You see what you want to see, Korthik snapped. I see a species preparing for war. They send one diplomat here while building warships in secret. Our spies report new human military bases throughout their territory. The king stood and walked to the ancient weapons display. He stopped before a curved blade that had belonged to his grandfather, the conqueror of the Beta sector. Tell me about this diplomat. What did you observe today? She is smart, Vex admitted, well trained in negotiation techniques. She speaks our language fluently and understands our customs. But there is something else about her. Something that does not fit. Explain. Her reactions are too controlled, too precise. When I mentioned human warriors, she did not react with pride or defensiveness like most diplomats would. She simply absorbed the information, like a soldier gathering intelligence. Admiral Hayes leaned forward. You think she is a spy? I think she is more than she appears, Vex replied. Much more. General Korthik smiled coldly. Then we have an opportunity. If this diplomat is truly important to the humans, her death would send a clear message. It would also give us justification to strike first. The king returned to his throne. You propose murder, General. That is a serious step. I propose survival, Your Majesty. The humans are not like the other species. We have conquered. They are adaptable, dangerous. If we wait until they are stronger, we may not be able to stop them. Admiral Hayes stood up abruptly. This is madness. We cannot start a war based on fear and speculation. The Human Confederation has done nothing to threaten us. They exist, Korthik replied. That is threat enough. The debate continued for hours. Charts and data filled the air as the advisors argued back and forth. Some sided with Korthik, believing that humanity posed a future threat. Others agreed with Hayes that starting a war without provocation was wrong. King Valros listened to it all. He remembered his father's teachings about ruling an empire. Strike first or be struck down. Show weakness once and your enemies will smell blood forever. The old king had been wise. The empire had grown strong under his rule and stronger under Valros, but this was different. The humans were not a neighboring empire seeking to expand. They were a young species trying to find their place in the galaxy. Starting a war with them felt like killing a child before it could grow up to challenge you. Yet the numbers did not lie. Human population was exploding. Their technology was advancing rapidly. In 50 years, maybe less, they could become a real threat to Zephyrian dominance. General Korthik, the king said finally, what do you propose? Korthik activated a new display. This one showed the palace layout. Tomorrow, the human diplomat will tour our military museum. There will be demonstrations of historical weapons. It would be tragic if one of those weapons malfunctioned. An accident, Vex said slowly. The humans would have no reason to suspect treachery. Exactly. We express our deep regret at the terrible malfunction. We offer compensation for their loss. Then, when they send investigators or make demands, we have justification to defend ourselves. Admiral Hayes slammed his fist on the table. You want to murder an innocent diplomat and then start a war when her people seek justice? This is not honorable. Honor is a luxury for the strong, Korthik replied. When the humans come with their fleets seeking revenge, will honor protect our worlds? Will honor save our children? The king stood and walked to the chamber's single window. Outside, the lights of the capital city twinkled like stars. Millions of Zephyrians lived in those buildings. They looked to him for protection, for leadership. His empire had grown through strength and cunning. Every world in Zephyrian space had been taken from someone else. The weak had been conquered or destroyed. The strong had been absorbed or made into allies. It was the way of the galaxy. But the humans were different. They had something the other species lacked. Adaptability, creativity, the ability to learn and grow faster than anyone expected. They reminded him of the Zephyrians themselves. Centuries ago, when they first reached for the stars. Your Majesty, Korthik pressed, we need a decision. The longer we wait, the stronger they become. King Valros turned back to face his advisors. His decision would affect the fate of 2 species, maybe more if the war spread to other systems. Admiral Hayes, how long would it take to mobilize the fleet? Hayes looked surprised. For what purpose, Your Majesty? Answer the question. 2 weeks for a full mobilization. 1 week for a rapid response force. And our intelligence network in human space. Chancellor Vex consulted his datapad. We have monitoring stations in 3 systems. Agents on 5. Human worlds, limited but functional. The king nodded slowly. General Korthik, explain your plan in detail. Korthik's eyes gleamed with anticipation. The museum tour begins at midday. We will use the ancient plasma cannon in the main hall. I will activate it personally, claiming to demonstrate its historical significance. Instead of firing a harmless light beam, the weapon will discharge at full power. And the human guards? Collateral damage. They will be standing close to there. Diplomat. The blast will kill all three instantly. What about witnesses? Dozens of museum staff and visitors will see the malfunction. Their testimony will support our claim that it was an accident. Admiral Hayes shook his head in disgust. This is butchery, not strategy. This is survival, Korthik shot back. The humans must be stopped before they become unstoppable. King Valros returned to his throne. The weight of decision pressed down on him like a physical force. He thought of his ancestors who had built the empire through blood and fire. He thought of his people who trusted him to protect them from all threats. Very well, he said finally. General Korthik, you will proceed with your plan. Admiral Hayes, begin fleet mobilization immediately. I want our forces ready to move within days of the incident. Hayes stared at his king in shock. Your Majesty, please reconsider. This path leads only to destruction. The path of weakness leads to extinction, Valros replied. I will not let that happen to our people. The meeting broke up shortly after. Orders were sent to fleet commanders throughout the empire. Military bases went to high alert. Weapons were loaded and ships prepared for war. In the guest quarters above, Ambassador Lisa Martinez slept lightly, unaware that her death had been planned and scheduled. The next day would bring what appeared to be a routine cultural tour. Instead, it would bring the moment that changed everything between humans and Zephyrians. General Korthik spent the evening personally inspecting the plasma cannon. He tested its power systems and confirmed the targeting coordinates. Everything was ready. Tomorrow the human threat would be eliminated. But Korthik had made one critical error. He assumed the human diplomat was exactly what she appeared to be. He believed that killing her would be as simple as pointing a weapon and pulling a trigger. He was about to learn how wrong he could be. The Zephyrian Empire was about to discover that humans had many surprises hidden beneath their peaceful exterior. And Lisa Martinez was about to show them all why some humans were feared throughout the galaxy. The next morning would bring fire and blood to the royal palace. It would bring the awakening of something ancient and terrible. It would bring the moment when the Baba Yaga opened her eyes and remembered who she really was. The morning sun cast long shadows across the capital city as Lisa Martinez prepared for the museum tour. She stood before the mirror in her guest quarters, adjusting her diplomatic jacket. To anyone watching, she looked like a woman getting ready for another day of boring meetings, but Lisa was doing much more than fixing her appearance. She was conducting a final equipment check. The small ceramic knife hidden in her sleeve was secure. The emergency beacon disguised as a diplomatic pin was active. The tiny explosive charges sewn into her jacket lining were armed and ready. She had not slept well. The conversation she overheard yesterday kept playing in her mind. General Korthik wanted her dead. The only question was when and how he would try to kill her. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Ambassador Martinez, came a voice from outside. His Majesty is ready for the museum tour. Coming, Lisa replied. She took one last look around the room, memorizing the positions of everything. If she survived today, she might need to return. Here quickly. Captain Brooks and Sergeant Collins waited in the hallway. Both men looked relaxed and confident. They had no idea what was coming. Lisa decided to keep it that way. If they knew about the danger, they might act differently and alert. The Zephyrians. Good morning, gentlemen, she said with a smile. Ready for some ancient history? Looking forward to it, ma'am, Collins replied. I hear they have weapons dating back thousands of years. Indeed they do, Lisa said quietly. More than you know. She thought. The museum was enormous, taking up an entire city block. The building was made of white stone and rose 7 stories into the sky. Flags from conquered worlds flew from tall poles around the entrance, a reminder of Zephyrian power. And Reach, King Valros, met them at the main entrance. He wore ceremonial robes of deep blue decorated with silver thread. His crown was a simple band of metal, but the jewels embedded in it were worth more than most planets. "Welcome to our Museum of Military History," the king said. "Here you will see artifacts from every major campaign in Zephyrian history. Some of these weapons are older than your entire civilization." They entered through massive doors that took 4 guards to open. The first hall was filled with displays of armor and weapons from the early days of Zephyrian spaceflight. Primitive by current standards, but still deadly. Lisa walked beside the king, maintaining perfect diplomatic composure. But her trained eyes were cataloging everything: exit locations, guard positions, potential weapons, escape routes. The habits of a lifetime were hard to break. General Korthik joined them in the second hall. He smiled warmly at Lisa, showing no sign of the murderous thoughts he harbored. "Ambassador, I hope you find our collection educational. We Zephyrians have a long and proud military tradition." "Very impressive," Lisa replied. "The craftsmanship is extraordinary." They moved through hall after hall, each one dedicated to a different period of Zephyrian history. Korthek provided commentary, describing battles and conquests with obvious pride. Captain Brooks and Sergeant Collins listened with professional interest. Lisa noticed how the general gradually moved the group toward the center of the museum. He was steering them somewhere specific. She could feel the trap closing around them like a net. The main exhibition hall was a vast circular chamber with a domed ceiling. Ancient weapons lined the walls while larger pieces occupied the center of the space. The centerpiece was a massive cannon that looked like it belonged on a spaceship rather than in a museum. "This," Korthik announced with obvious pride, "is the plasma cannon from the battleship Eternal Glory. It participated in the conquest of the Beta Quadrant 300 years ago. The weapon is still functional, though we only use it for historical demonstrations now." Lisa studied the cannon carefully. It was pointed directly at the area where visitors normally stood to watch demonstrations. The firing controls were within easy reach of the operator. Too easy. Her enhanced hearing picked up subtle sounds that others would miss. The hum of charging power cells. The whisper of targeting systems coming online. This was not a museum piece, preparing for a harmless light show. This was a weapon preparing to kill. "Would you like to see a demonstration of how it works?" Korthik asked innocently. "That would be fascinating," Lisa replied. But she was already moving, her body shifting into a combat stance so gradually that no one noticed. King Valros and his courtiers gathered around the demonstration area. Captain Brooks and Sergeant Collins took their usual positions behind Lisa, close enough to protect her, but far enough away to avoid crowding. Exactly where Korthik wanted them. "The cannon operates on a simple principle," Korthik explained, as he moved to the firing controls. "Plasma is generated in this chamber, accelerated through magnetic coils, and discharged through the barrel. In historical battles, it could destroy enemy ships at remarkable distances." Lisa's muscles tensed. Every instinct screamed danger. The general's movements were too deliberate, too practiced. His fingers were moving toward controls that should not be active in a museum display. "Of course, for safety reasons, we only fire a harmless light beam during demonstrations," Korthik continued. But his hand was reaching for a different control entirely. One marked with warning symbols in the Zephyrian language. Time seemed to slow down as Lisa recognized the moment of attack. Korthik's finger touched the firing control. The cannon's power systems reached full charge. The targeting computer locked. Onto the human delegation, Lisa moved. 30 years of training and genetic enhancement kicked in simultaneously. She threw herself sideways, tackling both Captain Brooks and Sergeant Collins to the ground, just as superheated plasma screamed through the space where they had been standing. The blast was enormous. White-hot energy struck the far wall of the museum with the force of a small bomb. Stone and metal vaporized instantly. The temperature in the hall rose by 50 degrees in seconds. Molten fragments of the wall scattered across the floor like deadly rain. For a moment, everyone stood frozen in shock. The plasma cannon's discharge had left a smoking crater where the wall used to be. The smell of burned stone and superheated metal filled the air. Then Korthik began shouting, "Malfunction! The weapon malfunctioned! Get medical teams here immediately!" But his performance was unconvincing. Lisa rose from the floor with fluid grace that no normal diplomat should possess. Her diplomatic jacket was torn and dirty, but she showed no sign of injury or panic. Instead, her eyes were cold and calculating as she stared at General Korth. Captain Brooks and Sergeant Collins scrambled to their feet, reaching for their sidearms. They were good Marines, but they were confused and disoriented by the sudden attack. "Stand down," Lisa commanded quietly. Both Marines immediately stopped reaching for their weapons. There was something in her voice that demanded instant obedience. King Valros stared at the smoking crater, then at Lisa. His mind was struggling to process what had just happened. The human diplomat had moved with impossible speed. Her reflexes were faster than any Zephyrian he had ever seen. "Your Majesty," Lisa said in a voice that had dropped all pretense of diplomatic courtesy, "I believe we need to discuss your real intentions." The temperature in the room seemed to drop as she spoke. Her diplomatic facade was cracking, revealing something ancient and predatory underneath. The woman who had negotiated trade agreements yesterday was gone. In her place stood someone far more dangerous. General Korthik reached for his sidearm, but Lisa was already moving. A small ceramic knife appeared in her hand as if by magic. The blade caught Korthik in the throat before he could clear his holster. He dropped to the floor, blood pooling beneath him. The other guards in the hall began to react, but they were too slow. Lisa moved like liquid death, flowing between them with deadly efficiency. Each movement was precise and economical. Each strike was lethal. Captain Brooks and Sergeant Collins watched in stunned amazement as their diplomatic escort cut through elite Zephyrian guards like they were children playing with toys. This was not the calm, professional ambassador they had known for months. This was something else entirely. Within seconds, the hall was filled with bodies. Lisa stood in the center of the carnage, not even breathing hard. Her diplomatic credentials lay scattered on the floor, revealing hidden compartments filled with weapons and equipment that no normal diplomat would carry. King Valros backed toward the exit, his face pale with shock and fear. "What are you?" he whispered. Lisa turned to face him, blood dripping from her ceramic blade. "I am Ambassador Lisa Martinez, representative of the Human Confederation," she said calmly. "But before I became a diplomat, I had another job, another name." She took a step toward the king, who froze in place like a small animal caught by a predator. "Some people called me the Baba Yaga," she continued. "I was very good at my previous job, very good at making problems disappear permanently." The few surviving guards had fled the hall, abandoning their king in their panic. Lisa and Valros were alone, except for Captain Brooks and Sergeant Collins, who stood watching with expressions of shock and awe. "Did you really think," Lisa asked, conversationally, "that humanity would send an ordinary diplomat to negotiate with someone of your reputation? We know exactly what kind of ruler you are, Your Majesty. We came prepared." King Valros stared at the woman who had just destroyed his elite guards with her bare hands. The throne room that had seemed so safe just hours ago now felt like a trap. Bodies lay scattered across the polished floor, and the smell of blood filled the air. Lisa Martinez wiped her ceramic blade clean on General Korthik's uniform. The motion was casual, almost bored, as if killing trained warriors was something she did every day. Captain Brooks and Sergeant Collins stood behind her, still, trying to understand what they had witnessed. "Your Majesty," Lisa said, her voice calm and steady, "I suggest you dismiss your remaining guards. This conversation should be private." The king looked around the hall. A few guards still stood at the exits, their weapons drawn but their hands shaking. They had watched their comrades die in seconds. None of them wanted to be the next to face the human diplomat. "Go," Valros commanded. His voice cracked slightly. "Leave us." The guards fled gratefully, abandoning their posts without a backward glance. The massive doors of the throne room closed with a sound like thunder. Now only 5 people remained in the vast chamber. Lisa walked slowly toward the crystal throne, stepping over bodies without looking down. Each step echoed in the silence. King Valros pressed himself back against his throne as if the black crystal could protect him. "Let me tell you a story," Lisa began, still approaching at that steady, terrifying pace. 20 years ago there was a space station called Mercy Point. Pirates had captured it and were using the civilians as slaves. The local government asked for help. She paused beside the corpse of a guard captain. The man had been considered one of the finest warriors in the Empire. Now he was just meat on the floor. "They sent me," Lisa continued. "One person against 300 pirates and their military-grade weapons. Do you know what happened to those pirates, Your Majesty?" King Valros tried to speak but only managed a weak croak. His mouth had gone completely dry. "They all died," Lisa said simply. "Every single one. It took me 6 hours to clear the entire station. The civilians were freed. The pirates learned what happens when you threaten innocent people." She was only 10 feet from the throne now, close enough that Valros could see the scars on her arms more clearly. Close enough to notice that her hands never stopped moving, always ready to produce another weapon from some hidden pocket. "After Mercy Point, they started calling me the Baba Yaga," Lisa explained. "Do you know that reference, Your Majesty? It comes from old Earth folklore. The Baba Yaga was a witch who lived in the forest. Parents told their children stories about her to make them behave." Another step closer. King Valros could smell the blood on her clothes now. But the Baba Yaga was not just a witch in the stories. She was a test. Good people who showed her respect and kindness were rewarded. Bad people who tried to trick or harm her. Lisa smiled coldly. Well, they usually ended up as bones scattered around her house. Captain Brooks found his voice. "Ma'am, maybe we should contact the ship. Let them know what happened here." Lisa did not turn around. "Already done, Captain. I sent an encrypted signal during the fight. The Harmony's edge is moving to a safe distance and has alerted Earth Command." "How did you?" Brooks started to ask, then stopped. After what he had seen today, he was not sure he wanted to know the answer. "I have been preparing for this possibility since we entered Zephyrian space," Lisa explained. "Did you think I came here unprepared? Did you think humanity would send a helpless diplomat to negotiate with a known conqueror?" She was 5 feet from the throne now. King Valros could see his own reflection in her green eyes. What he saw there made him want to run screaming from the room. "Your empire has a reputation, Your Majesty. 37 species conquered or destroyed in the last 2 centuries. Entire civilizations wiped out because they refused to bow to Zephyrian rule. Did you think we had not studied your history?" Lisa reached into her torn jacket and pulled out a small device. It looked like a simple data pad, but Valros recognized it as a military communication unit, much more advanced than anything a diplomat should carry. "Right now," she said, activating the device, "Admiral Hayes is receiving new orders from his king. Orders to stand down all fleet movements and begin immediate peace negotiations with humanity." "I never gave such orders," Valros whispered. "You will," Lisa replied. Because the alternative is much worse for your people. She touched another control on the device. A holographic display appeared above it, showing star maps of both human and Zephyrian space. Red markers indicated military positions and fleet movements. While you were planning to murder me, Lisa continued, my people were making their own preparations. We have been watching your empire for months. We know where your fleets are positioned. We know the locations of your major military bases. We know which worlds are most important to your economy. King Valros stared at the display in growing horror. The red markers showed human intelligence had penetrated deep into Zephyrian space. They knew everything. Impossible, he breathed. Our security is perfect. No one could gather this much information without us knowing. Lisa laughed, but the sound held no humor. Your security was designed to stop other empires like yourselves. Slow, predictable enemies who fight the same way you do. You were not prepared for humans. She manipulated the display, zooming in on specific locations. Here is your main shipyard in the Delta sector. 17 battleships under construction. Here is your primary ammunition depot for the entire Northern Fleet. Here is the communication hub that coordinates all military traffic in the outer systems. Each location she indicated was marked with detailed information. Guard rotations, defensive capabilities, weak points that could be exploited. It was a complete intelligence package that should have taken years to compile. How long have you been watching us? Valros asked. Since the day we achieved faster-than-light travel. Lisa replied. We studied every major power in this region of space. The peaceful ones became our friends and trading partners. The aggressive ones... She gestured at the bodies around them. Well, we prepared for them too. Sergeant Collins was staring at the display with professional appreciation. Ma'am, this level of intelligence gathering. How many agents do we have in Zephyrian space? More than they know, Lisa answered. Humans are very good at blending in, Sergeant. We can look like almost any species with the right modifications. Your people never suspected that some of their most trusted citizens were actually human operatives. King Valros felt sick. His empire, his perfect, unbreachable empire, had been infiltrated by a species he had dismissed as primitive children. What do you want? He asked. What I always wanted. Lisa said, a fair trade agreement between our peoples. The same deal I offered yesterday, before you decided to try killing me. And if I refuse? Lisa's smile became genuinely terrifying. Then tonight, several of your most important military installations will suffer tragic accidents. Explosions, system failures, communication breakdowns. Your fleet will be crippled before they even know they are under attack. She leaned closer to the throne, her voice dropping to a whisper. And then, Your Majesty, I will show you and your people what the Baba Yaga is really capable of. I will turn your empire into a cautionary tale that other species tell their children. The king looked around his throne room one more time. At the bodies of his guards. At the smoking crater where the museum wall used to be. At the woman who had done all of this with nothing but her bare hands and a few hidden weapons. Admiral Hayes, he said into his communication device. Stand down all fleet movements immediately. Begin preparations for formal peace negotiations with the Human Confederation. Your Majesty? Came Hayes' confused voice. I do not understand. General Korthik said we were to proceed with the attack plan. General Korthik is dead, Valros replied. As are most of the Royal Guard. We are no longer at war with humanity. We are surrendering to them. The silence from the communication device lasted for several long seconds. Then Admiral Hayes spoke again, his voice carefully controlled. Understood, Your Majesty. All fleets will stand down immediately. Lisa nodded approvingly. Very wise decision. Now then, shall we discuss the terms of our new agreement? I think you will find humanity can be quite generous to former enemies who see reason. King Valrose looked at the human diplomat who had just conquered his empire without firing a single shot from a spaceship. She had walked into his palace alone and brought him to his knees through sheer skill and preparation. What are your terms? He asked quietly. Lisa smiled, and for the first time since the fight began, there was actual warmth in the expression. The same ones I offered yesterday, plus a few additions to account for your change in circumstances. I think you will find them quite reasonable. She activated her communication device again. Captain Brooks, please contact the Harmony's Edge. Tell them to send down a full diplomatic team. We have some paperwork to complete. As the captain moved away to make his call, Lisa turned back to the king. You know, Your Majesty, this could have been so much simpler if you had just accepted our original offer. Now you get the same deal, but your people will always know their king was defeated by a single human diplomat. King Valrose closed his eyes and tried not to think about how history would remember this day. 6 months had passed since the incident at the Zephyrian Royal Palace. The official reports called it a diplomatic breakthrough following an unfortunate weapons malfunction. The truth was classified at the highest levels of both governments. Lisa Martinez stood on the observation deck of the new human embassy on Zephyria Prime. The building was tall and made of gleaming metal that reflected the light of the local sun. Below her, the capital city bustled with activity. Zephyrian and human ships shared the same landing platforms. Trade was booming. The door behind her opened quietly. Admiral Hayes entered, carrying a datapad and wearing the expression of a man who still could not quite believe what had happened to his empire. Ambassador, he said with a respectful nod. The monthly trade reports are ready for your review. Lisa turned from the window. She wore the same blue diplomatic uniform as before, but now everyone who saw it understood what it really meant. The uniform of someone who had conquered an empire with her bare hands. How are the numbers looking, Admiral? She asked. Hayes consulted his datapad. Better than projected. Human technology is very popular with our merchants. The new computer systems have increased shipping efficiency by 30%. Medical supplies from human colonies have reduced disease rates across 6 worlds. And the military situation? All Zephyrian fleets remain in defensive positions as agreed. No movements toward human space. No aggressive actions against any species. Your people have been very thorough in their monitoring. Lisa smiled. We learned from the best, Admiral. The Zephyrian Empire taught us the importance of being prepared. Hayes shifted uncomfortably. He was a good officer who had served his empire faithfully for decades. Accepting orders from a former enemy was still difficult for him. There is one matter that requires your attention, he said. The Kellyan Republic has requested a meeting. They want to discuss trade agreements similar to yours. Another species. Seeking human partnership, Lisa mused. Word travels fast in this part of space. Very fast. 7 different governments have sent diplomatic inquiries in the past month. It seems everyone wants to be friends with humanity now. Lisa walked to her desk and activated a communication terminal. Captain Brooks, please come to my office. A few minutes later, Brooks entered the room. He looked much the same as before, but his eyes held a new understanding of the universe and humanity's place in it. Sergeant Collins was with him, equally changed by what they had witnessed. Captain, I need you to contact Earth Command, Lisa said. Tell them we may need additional diplomatic teams. The demand for human partnerships is exceeding our current capacity. Yes, ma'am, Brooks replied. Should I mention the nature of these requests? They already know. Our intelligence network is very efficient. Hayes watched this exchange with fascination. The casual way Lisa discussed human intelligence operations still amazed him. His empire had spent centuries building their spy network. Humanity had apparently done the same thing in a few decades. After Brooks and Collins left, Hayes sat down across from Lisa's desk. "May I ask you something, Ambassador?" "Of course." "How many others like you are there? How many Baba Yagas does humanity have?" Lisa leaned back in her chair. "More than our enemies know. Fewer than our friends hope. We are a peaceful species, Admiral, but we are not helpless. When we reached the stars, we studied every lesson history had to teach us. And what did you learn? That the universe is a dangerous place. That good intentions are not enough to protect innocent people. That sometimes the only way to preserve peace is to be prepared for war." Hayes nodded slowly. "We learned that. Lesson 2, but perhaps we took it too far." "Perhaps you did. But you are learning new lessons now. Your people and mine work together very well when we are not trying to kill each other." A soft chime indicated an incoming transmission. Lisa activated the display, revealing the face of President Martinez of the Human Confederation. No relation, despite the shared name. "Ambassador, I hope I am not interrupting," the President said. "Not at all, Madam President. Admiral Hayes and I were just reviewing the monthly reports." "Excellent. I am calling to inform you that the Galactic Council has voted to award you the Peace Prize for your role in preventing what could have been a devastating war." Lisa raised an eyebrow. "A peace prize? For someone who killed a dozen people in a museum? For someone who ended a conflict before it could begin? The Council recognizes that your actions, while dramatic, saved millions of lives on both sides." Admiral Hayes leaned forward. "Madam President, if I may, the admiral who was killed in the museum was planning to attack human colonies. Ambassador Martinez stopped a war, not started one." "Thank you for that clarification, Admiral. The awards ceremony will be held on New Geneva in 3 weeks. I hope you can attend, Ambassador. I will be honored to accept on behalf of all the human operatives who work to keep our people safe," Lisa replied. After the transmission ended, Hayes sat back in his chair. "A peace prize for the Baba Yaga. The universe has a strange sense of humor. The universe has a sense of justice, Lisa." "Corrected. Good actions are rewarded, regardless of the methods used to achieve them." Over the following weeks, Lisa prepared for the awards ceremony. The event would be attended by representatives from dozens of species, all eager to meet the human diplomat who had single-handedly changed the balance of power in their region of space. The ceremony itself was held in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council chambers. Lisa wore her formal diplomatic dress uniform, complete with ribbons and nettles that told a story few people understood. She looked like any other government official receiving recognition for a job well done. When her name was called, she walked to the podium with the same calm grace she had shown while walking through a field of corpses. The applause was polite, but reserved. Many of the attending diplomats were still processing what humanity's emergence really meant for their own governments. "Thank you for this honor," Lisa began. "I accept this award not just for myself, but for all the men and women who work in darkness to preserve the light. Diplomacy is not always about handshakes and signed papers. Sometimes it requires harder choices." She paused, looking out at the assembled representatives. "The Zephyrian Empire and the Human Confederation have learned that we are stronger as partners than as enemies. We hope other species will consider the benefits of cooperation over conflict." The applause was louder this time, though Lisa noticed several delegates whispering among themselves. They were probably wondering what other surprises humanity might reveal in the future. After the ceremony, Lisa found herself surrounded by other diplomats eager to discuss trade agreements and mutual defense treaties. Everyone wanted to be on humanity's good side now that they understood what the alternative might look like. Later that evening, she stood alone on the observation deck of her hotel, looking out at the stars. Her communication device chimed softly. The display showed a message from Earth Command. "New assignment available. The Serpentist Confederation has been making aggressive moves toward our mining colonies. We need someone to open diplomatic channels and assess their intentions. Are you available? Lisa smiled and typed her reply. Always available for humanity's interests. When do I leave? The response came quickly. Transport departs tomorrow. Cover identity is Cultural Exchange Coordinator. Full briefing materials. Attached. Lisa closed the communication device and looked back at the stars. Somewhere out there, another potential enemy was making plans against humanity. They probably thought humans were just lucky or primitive people who had stumbled into advanced technology that they would learn differently soon enough. The Serpentist Confederation would discover what the Zephyrian Empire had learned. That humanity had many faces, many hidden strengths, and many surprises for those who chose to make them enemies. The Baba Yaga was going back to work. The galaxy was about to receive another lesson in why it was better to be humanity's friend than their target. And Lisa Martinez would make sure the lesson was one that would not be forgotten. In the depths of space, human agents continued their quiet work. They watched and waited and prepared for threats that might never come. But if those threats did emerge, they would find humanity ready, because some humans were teachers, and some were builders, and some were explorers. But some humans were made of darker stuff. Some humans walked in shadows and carried names that made enemies afraid to sleep. The universe was learning to respect humanity, not just for their achievements, but for their hidden strengths. And that respect would keep the peace for many years to come.